quitting is a mental thing, not a physical thing.
Top's in sight.
Our ability to persist is neural. So when people say it's 90% mental, 10% physical, everything is physical, everything is neurons. Your thinking is the responsibility of chemicals and electrical signals in your head. So it's not 90% mental, 10% physical. It's not 50-50. It's 100% nervous system.
Almost dropped it right there. That was my one commitment. Not setting this thing down. If I drop it, I drop it. I don't think I've trained with my shirt off since I was 19. But it's survival now.
The reason we quit is rarely because our body quits. Our mind quits.
Wrapping up our rock. What do you think? It's good work. Good job, thanks, brother.
رادیو شیفت شب. یک ساله که این آقا و پادکستش کاملا منو تسخیر خودش کرده. آقای اندرو هوبرمن، پروفسوری که بچه پایین بوده و دنیای آموزش سلامت رو به کلی متحول کرده. این استاد دانشگاه استنفورد توی پادکستش کلی ابزارهای کاربردی میگه تا حتی مردم عادی هم بتونن از آخرین نتایج آزمایشگاه‌های بزرگ دنیا توی نوروساینس بهره مند بشن و کارش اینه که بفهمه توی مغز ما آدم‌ها چی میگذره. توی این قسمت میخوایم بریم یک نگاه به زندگی جالب هوبرمن بندازیم و ببینیم این ابزارهایی که زندگیمون رو قراره خوب کنن چیه. پس با ما همراه باشید.
The following is a conversation with Andrew Hooberman.
I have Andrew Hooberman today.
Andrew Hooberman, he's a neuroscientist,
a neurobiology professor at Stanford Medical School.
I got exposed to drugs, alcohol, fights.
He has made numerous important contributions to the fields of brain development, brain function, and neural plasticity.
I stopped really paying attention to school.
A brand new member of our faculty, Andy Huberman.
I did everything I could to resist getting taken away, but they took me away and put me under lock and key there.
I have two sons. They are obsessed.
Most men in the country are. He's become like this go-to guy.
It was really like the I'm going to end up dead or in jail.
اندرو در سال 1975 در شهر پر جنب و جوش سان فرانسیسکو به دنیا اومد. مادرش که یک معلم خونگی بود و پدرش که یک استاد دانشگاه بود باعث شده بودن که اون خیلی علاقه زیادی به مسائل علمی و حیوانات پیدا کنه.
Because I was obsessive about learning. So when I was like 6, I'd spend all my time in, pet stores cataloging all the fish.
پدر اندرو که یک استاد دانشگاه فیزیک بود باعث شده بود که اون خیلی علاقه‌مند به مسائل علمی بشه.
So I had this really unusual childhood where, we didn't talk about sports, we talked about science. And I had this close relationship with science and the people around science.
اما با نزدیک شدن اندرو به سن نوجوانی به یک باره زندگیش دچار یک چرخش دراماتیک شد و همین باعث شد که زندگیش وارد مسیری بشه که زیاد روی اون کنترل نداشت.
And so everything took a hard turn when I was about 12-13. My parents divorced and unfortunately they didn't read the rule book, or if they did, they broke every rule in the rule book. And it was a very high conflict situation.
یک باره اون محیط گرم و صمیمی خونشون کاملا از بین رفت. پدرشون اونو تنها گذاشت و همین باعث شد که مادرش دچار افسردگی شدیدی بشه که دیگه اصلا نتونه به هوبرمن توجه کنه و حمایت هایی که نیاز داره رو ازش داشته باشه.
I can now in retrospect it was a super traumatic, daily traumatic environment if I was at home, or it was just like pure neglect.
اندرو کاملا خودشو گم شده و تنها حس می‌کرد. برای همین دل به خیابون زد و در اونجا با گروهی از اسکیت بورد بازها آشنا شد که گروهی از جوانها بودن که خودشونو کاملا جدا از جامعه می‌دیدن.
Basically what happened was I stopped really paying attention to school and I got really heavily into skateboarding. the kind of punk rock music. And I found my pack or my community through like a pack and community of kids that also just were kind of parentless. And there I got exposed to a lot. I got exposed to drugs, alcohol, fights. I got exposed to a lot of kids that just didn't go to school, just didn't go. There were a bunch of, you know, a lot of untoward elements. And so it was this pack of maybe 100 guys, and it was run like a little city, and it was chaos. It was like there was fights and there was drinking and there was lawlessness.
کم کم اندرو دیگه شبا به خونه هم نمیرفت و همین باعث شده بود که مدرسه هم از دست بده.
All of a sudden I realized, you know, I don't have to be home at any particular time, or you know, none of these kids are going to school. And so it was a kind of big group of truants, and I was drifting further and further away from any kind of academic rigor.
و این پیچوندن‌های مدرسه باعث شد که توجه معلمش جلب بشه و اونو به یک برنامه تربیتی بفرسته که اونجا دانش آموزا رو زندانی می‌کردن تا ادب بشن و از مدرسه نیومدن پشیمون شن.
In any case, what happened was something about my behavior cued the school system, probably the fact that I wasn't going to school much anymore. I got taken away. I got put into a residential treatment program up on the peninsula. This was not for drug use, alcohol use, or hurting anyone or myself. This was mainly for truancy, and they were really concerned about me. I can't sleep. They're coming in doing bed checks like 3 times a night. They're frisking us. They're doing cavity searches for did we bring in weapons, did we bring in drugs.
هوبرمن با انجام دادن قوانین و درمانهایی که بهش گفته بودن تونست بعد 1 ماه آزاد بشه، ولی باز هم بعد ترک بازداشتگاه هیچ اشتیاقی دیگه به تحصیل کردن نداشت و از مدرسه به مدرسه دیگه منتقل میشد.
Basically, they just said you need to either start coming to school or, you know, you're done. So I got shifted to another high school, and that was the same story. It was a mess. It just fell apart.
I was not a good student. I barely finished high school. And I was really struggling to figure things out.
با اینکه دیگه هیچ انگیزه‌ای واسه درس خوندن و ادامه تحصیل نداشت، رفت دانشگاه UC باربارا که اونجا همراه دوست دخترش زندگی کنه.
You know, I got into UC Santa Barbara and I went there to be with her. And let's just say 2 quarters into it, I had more fights than I did time in class. And by the end of the year, I was basically flunking out.
فرار کردن از درس و دعوا کردن، هوبرمن وارد مسیری شد که واقعاً عاقبت خوبی نداشت. اما در 4 جولای 1994 اتفاقی افتاد که به کلی مسیر زندگیشو تغییر داد.
And what ended up happening was I got into a physical altercation on July 4th, 1994 with like a bunch of guys. And we show up at a friend's house, and a bunch of guys were stealing some stuff from the house. It was clear they were loading up their cars. So got into this fight with a bunch of guys. And the people I had shown up there with all scrambled. They all just took off. And so this fight started getting ratcheted up into weapons and people hitting each other with skateboards and like so knives coming out and the whole thing. The police show up. In the end, I was let go.
And I realized I'm officially a loser. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm 19 years old. Girlfriend and I are split up. I screwed up my first opportunity, or the opportunity to get a college education. I'd gotten straight C's and D's my first year, if I even got that. Mm-hmm. I've already been to youth detention once, but now I'm 19. I'm delivering bagels. I don't like the guy who owns the bagel shop. I have a bad attitude. Like, I'm officially a loser.
Because it was really like the I'm gonna end up dead or in jail.
در حالی که هوبرمن در اون سوی جاده داشت با پیامدهای اعمالش روبرو میشد، با یک لحظه تعیین کننده مواجه شد که میتونست زندگیشو در جهت جدیدی بچرخونه.
And I actually wrote a 2-page letter to my mom. I still have it. Where I said, you know, this is it. I'm turning it around. I don't care if the teachers are good. I'm gonna just do the work.
And I just was a machine. It was like Henry Rollins style, just like work out. I listened to Rancid, listened to Bob Dylan, listened to classical music on loop, drank coffee, worked out, ran, studied.
در طی این دوره شدید نظم و انضباط راهبگونه، هوبرمن تونست اشتیاقشو به یادگیری بازگردونه و با استعدادی که تو کودکی داشت تونست دوباره به یک دانشجوی اول تبدیل بشه.
I was a shit student and I became a straight A plus student as best I could, just through hard work. I used to sit in my room, read my textbooks and just rewrite them, memorize them. I used to close my eyes and memorize them.
اندرو پس از فارغ التحصیلی از دانشگاه کالیفرنیا سانتا باربارا توی دانشگاه بهتری پذیرفته شد و در اونجا در آزمایشگاه هری کارگیل شروع به کار کرد و در اونجا دوباره اشتیاق به علمش به اون خیلی کمک کرد.
I started getting really into working in Harry's lab, and he was great. My kind of guy. He smoked cigarettes in the lab. He'd light them with the Bunsen burner and smoke in the fume hood. We drink coffee. We were injecting rats with MDMA.
هوبرمن تازه داشت لذت نوروساینس رو میکشید و به علم امیدوار شده بود.
There was one professor in particular who took note. He was like, "Oh, you seem really interested in this stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, because he was teaching me about depression, schizophrenia, and neurochemicals." I thought I was totally turned on by the world of neuroscience. A light bulb went on. I was like, "This is I'm going to do this. I want to work on this. I want to understand the mind. I want to understand because I'd gone through my own thing of having been the kind of normal kid, happy, healthy childhood, then everything just kind of fell apart. I was depressed, but I was also angry. I was seeking, but and I was like, I want to figure this out. I was 20 years old at that point. So I just made the decision. I'm going to get a PhD. I'm going to become a professor. I'm going to get tenure. I'm going to be like this guy. This guy who looked like he had a pretty good life to me.
هوبرمن با کشف مجدد شیفتگی خودش نسبت به علم توی دوران کودکیش به تحصیلش ادامه داد و اونو به عنوان یک کار نمیدید بلکه به عنوان یک دروازه میدید برای درک بهتر پیچیدگی‌های زندگیمون که زمانی زندگی اون رو هم تحت تاثیر قرار داده بود. اون تا دکترا ادامه داد و بعد از اون استاد دانشگاه استنفورد شد.
Here today with real pleasure in interviewing a brand new member of our faculty, هوبرمن.
زندگی اندرو تا اینجا خیلی خوب گذشته. اون 43 سال داره و 2 دهه گذشته زندگیشو توی دنیای آکادمیک گذرونده و میتونست تا آخر عمرش هم همینطور ادامه بده. اما یک روز یکی از دوستاش اونو به یک چالشی دعوت کرد که کارهای بیشتری انجام بده.
So the reason I got involved in educating on social media was actually because of a Pat Dossett, and we were talking one morning and he said, so what are you going to do to serve the world in 2019? Like, well, I run my lab. I was like, no, what are you going to do that's new? If I had my way, I would just, teach everyone about the brain because I think it's amazing. He goes, well, do it. I go, all right. He goes, shake on it. So did it, and so I started putting out these posts.
این شد که اندرو وارد اینستاگرام شد تا آموزش های نوروساینسش رو به همه جای دنیا برسونه.
Hello and Happy New Year. My name is Andrew Hooberman and I'm a professor of neurobiology and ophthalmology at Stanford School of Medicine.
اولین پست های هوبرمن خیلی خام و خوشایند بودن ولی در طول 2019 با پیدا کردن صدا و شخصیت خودش در پادکستاش تونست جامعه آکادمیک رو به خودش جذب کنه. اما با شروع پندمیک کرونا و دست پنجه نرم کردن جهان هوبرمن واقعا نگرانی شدیدی پیدا کرد چون اطلاعاتی که همه باید بدونن و بهش عمل کنن رو اصلا کسی نمیگفت ولی همه جا پر بود از توصیه های غیر علمی.
So 2020 I was just really concerned for the world. Frankly, I was like, listen, I know the guy who's the director of the National Institutes of Mental Health. I don't see one soundbite. Sorry, Josh, but I don't know you well enough to kind of poke at you. But if it wasn't him, no advice on get regular sunlight, stay on a circadian rhythm, learn some stress mitigation techniques. It was like, and the world's kind of falling apart due to stress. And I'm thinking, okay, no one's going to step up. I'm just going to do this. And I wasn't selling a book. I didn't have a podcast. It was just giving information.
و اینجا بود که اندرو با پادکست آشنا شد و فهمید میتونه با اون اثر خودش رو چند برابر کنه.
And 2020 started with one podcast. I did 30 podcasts that year. I went on about 30 podcasts and went on Joe's podcast, Rogan's podcast and Lex's podcast at the end of 2020.
حضور در این پادکست های پرمخاطب نه تنها نشون دهنده تخصص او بود بلکه توانایی اونو در ترجمه مفاهیم پیچیده علمی به صورتی که قابل هضم برای مخاطبان جهانی بود باعث شده بود که او رو از یک دانشمند ناشناخت به مرد شماره 1 در حوزه توسعه فردی و سلامت تبدیل کنه که سوار بر موج محبوبیت بود و با شروع سال 2021 هوبرمن یک سرمایه گذاری جدید کرد و پادکست خودش رو به اسم هوبرمن لب شروع کرد.
Welcome to the Hooberman Lab podcast, where we discuss science and science-based tools for everyday life.
پادکست هوبرمن لب در سالی که راه اندازی شد به 10 پادکست برتر دنیا تبدیل شد و از اون زمان به بعد میلیون‌ها شنونده که مشتاقانه هر هفته منتظر بودن که قسمت جدید این پادکست رو بشنون.
Like I have 2 sons, they are obsessed.
Most men in the country are. He's become like this go-to guy.
هوبرمن زندگیش از خیابون‌ها و اسکیتبورد و دعوا شروع شد و تا استنفورد و ایجاد محتوایی برای میلیون‌ها نفر که چطوری زندگی خودشون رو هر هفته بهبود ببخشن ادامه پیدا کرد. این تغییر در مورد کشف مجدد احساساتیه که توی اعماق شما دفن شده و این گواهی بر اینه که روح انسان انعطاف پذیره و توانایی یافتن جهت توی هرج و مرج و روشن کردن امید زمانی که تنها چیزی نمی‌بینی جز ناامیدی رو داره. همه اینا یادآور اینه که گذشته ما رو تعریف نمی‌کنه، بلکه الانمون مهمه و پیگیری بی‌وقفه برای رشد و درک که سرنوشت ما رو شکل میده.
It's like right now I truly say if you gave me $100 billion to stop podcasting, I wouldn't do it. Because to me, what I know for sure based on my experience is that at some point the lights are going to go on from dead. Just like gone. You know this as a physician. People don't like to think this way. It's going to be lights out and sort of like what are you going to have? And what you have done. And so I really feel like as much as I can touch into like the beauty and utility of biology and share that, then I'm good. The rest is just noise.